Alright, so this is the demo for our app. Our design is meant to be for a mobile device. For the prototype, due to time constraints, we coded it as a desktop application, but as you can see, the dimensions and orientation of the device, or of the app, were selected to fit a typical mobile device. We wanted to implement a design for landscape orientation of the device, but time constraints prevented us from implementing this in the prototype stage. It's easy to imagine what the design would look like, though. Everything would pretty much be in the same place, but the orientation of labels and icons would be adjusted for the landscape orientation. So these things would be on the side, these would be on that side, and so on. Everything would just be flipped 90 degrees. We made the choice to design our image editor for a mobile device as a result of our research. We found that most people use their phones to take pictures, and they don't want to have to go through the trouble of loading their images to a desktop computer or a laptop and then having to deal with an application like Photoshop to edit their images. A lot of people don't even know how to do this in the first place. It seemed pretty obvious after our research that the best course of action was for the app to be on the same device most people use to take pictures, and also to be on a device that most people own, use frequently, and are quite familiar with using. So the design itself will fit on pretty much any mobile device. If the dimensions of the main app are changed, all the UI elements will reposition to fit the new dimensions. The positioning of everything is based entirely on the app dimensions. Due to time constraints, however, the icons we're using are 50 by 50 pixels, so they will not change in size if the dimensions change in size, but for the final version of the app, we could easily solve this minor issue by just using larger images and scaling them down with code. Scaling them down to whatever size they needed to be, which we would determine based on the resolution of the device. The point here is that this design will work on a variety of devices with a variety of resolutions without any issues. So let's talk about the loading screen. Immediately after the app loads, you can get a pretty good feel for our design. We've got 4 main buttons up top. We've got undo and redo buttons. We've got 2 buttons to load files or to load an image. We've got a little tip here. And then we've got 6 main buttons below. We've used constraints here because the only button that can do anything at this point is the button that loads a file from the file system, or loads an image from the file system. When the other buttons are capable of performing an action, they'll be enabled. If the device had a camera, the load from camera button would also be active at this stage if we had actually implemented that functionality, but we didn't do that for the prototype due to time constraints. So note also the behavior of this button. When you click it down, it goes down slightly, making it more button-like. It's not just a static image that doesn't move. It's a button and it behaves like a button. And also just, the random tip here, this is just an unobtrusive way of providing some basic assistance with the application. We only have 3 random tips at present, but we may add more for the final version. So let's actually load an image. Let's go to the Hoover Dam first. So as you can see, when we load an image, all of the buttons are now active. This button here, which is the Fix Imperfections tool, is not active, and neither is the Text/Brush tool. And the reason these are not active is because they're not implemented in the prototype. We just did not have time to implement these things. Another quick note here. Our research revealed that being able to zoom into the image is a very important feature, and we wanted to have the typical 2-finger pinch zooming that many mobile image editing apps have, that many mobile apps in general have, but time constraints prevented us from implementing any zooming functionality whatsoever. We are aware that this sort of thing is important, though, and the lack of zooming here is not an oversight, it is a time problem. So as far as this actual image that we've just loaded is concerned, the first thing you might have noticed here is that the orientation is wrong. So this is a pretty common problem with images, especially images taken with smartphones, and we have a very simple way of correcting this by clicking the button with an icon that is commonly understood to mean crop and rotate. Users are able to fix problems like these, so let's click that button. Now we wanted to have a much more sophisticated system for rotating and cropping, but this has not been implemented for the prototype due to time constraints. So we wanted to have something like users can drag and rotate, but there's just no time for that. So the idea here is that this tool would have more tools, and it would be possible to crop an image and to make precise rotations by dragging, etc. So for the prototype, we only have two features working in the crop rotate, which is basically rotate clockwise and rotate counterclockwise. So this is a good time to mention what these buttons are for. If you notice that when we click a tool, these buttons appear, and this is the button to discard a change. This is the button to confirm a change. So if we rotate and then we click this, the image reverts, and because we have discarded a change, there is still nothing to undo. So let's actually rotate this, we'll confirm a change, and now you can see the undo button is active, the redo button is still inactive. If we click this, it reverts back, and now there's an action to redo, so the redo button has been enabled. And again, we redo, now there's nothing else to redo, but there is something we can undo, and yes, you can see it. Pretty typical behavior of undo and redo here. So let's play with the colors of the image, since this is what the app is designed to do. For these tools, unlike the crop tool, where we just have regular buttons, we have toggle buttons, which it's the obvious choice here. So you can select one of these tools, and as you can see, the label changes. You can also see there is a inactive version of the color icon, just so users know where they are. It was the same with the crop. It's the same with all of the tools. Just to let them know where they are in the app. But anyway, we can adjust the hue, obviously, but I don't particularly want to adjust the hue of this image, so we'll just not do that. We'll discard that. You can adjust the intensity. You can go way over the top. You can take it all the way down to grayscale, but maybe around there looks pretty good. We've got tint adjustments. I don't particularly think a tint adjustment is called for here. Contrast, this is a pretty common thing to do, which our research obviously revealed that people want to be able to do. Warmth, we can just warm this up a bit because it's clearly not warm enough in the Nevada desert. So let's confirm these changes. And you might have noticed that when we were actually applying these changes, they apply to the image in real time. But when we confirm the changes, it took a second to apply them, and that is because these images here are 12 megapixel images. So when we actually when we adjust in real time, we're adjusting a scaled down version of the image, and we're queuing up a sequence of whatever tools these are, and then when you click accept to confirm the color modifications, then all that queue of operations is performed to the full-sized image, which is why it takes a while. Now we can, however, undo very easily because we store a copy of the image at after each confirmation action. And obviously, the only undoable actions are confirmed actions. So if you go in here and you adjust the warmth, this is not something that you can undo using this function. You've got to discard it. So we might tinker with that a little bit in the full version. So let's play with the light tools, which you access by clicking this icon here. As you can see, we have the standard brightness adjustment, but adjusting brightness is kind of like trying to hammer a nail with a sledgehammer. It's not particularly precise. You either darken the image a little too much, or you brighten it a little too much. It might be good for fine adjustments. You adjust a little bit, but if obviously if you go overboard, you're just left with something that looks terrible. And this is why we have these two other tools. Our research revealed that users wanted to be able to brighten their images, but they wanted to be able to do it in a way that didn't cause them to lose the richness of the darker colors. And likewise, they wanted to be able to darken their images without losing the brightness of the lighter colors in their image. So as you can see, the light tool, it doesn't really affect these darker areas of the image. It only affects the lighter areas of the image. And likewise, this tool here, it leaves the lighter areas of the image intact, and it only darkens the shadows. So let's apply those changes. And again, you can see it takes a second there to apply these because they're very large images, which are the sort of images that people take with a typical smartphone. So our research found that users will often make a series of changes to their images and decide that they want to start over. So we implemented a button that does this for them in our design. Now, obviously, they could just click undo, but there is a limited number of undoable actions, and if they exceed that limit, then they would have to load the image again, and that's kind of annoying. So what we did is we added this button to revert the image to the original, and as you can see, when you click this button, it doesn't just revert the image to the original, it asks them if they're sure they want to do that. And cancel is the default selected option. I'm not sure if this would be necessary on an actual mobile device because people are much less likely to accidentally hit enter or something like that. But for now, we have this as the default selected option. If you click cancel, obviously nothing happens. You can see that at least in the prototype, this operation can't be undone. That might change in the final version, but in particular, for the prototype, yeah, it can't be undone, so we've decided to prompt users before allowing them to do this. So you click confirm, and it reverts the image back to the original. Now, another thing that users obviously need to be able to do, which was, it's just common sense, but it was also revealed as a result of our research, or through our research, is that users want to be able to load new images. So as you can see, we're given another prompt here because once you return to the loading screen, if you haven't saved your image, the changes will be discarded. So again, cancel is the default option here. But if you confirm, you're brought back to the screen that you were in when the app loaded. So let's load up another image. Let's do Grand Canyon 001. Now let's perform a few basic adjustments to this image. So we'll darken it slightly. We will increase the intensity, maybe not that much. Let's warm it up just a wee bit. We'll increase the contrast, maybe increase the intensity just a little bit more. We'll confirm that. So it just takes a second here. Then we'll go to brightness. We will brighten, not too much. We don't want to lose anything. So increase the shadows a little bit. Maybe brighten it a bit more. Increase the shadows a bit more. So we'll apply that. So now let's show saving an image. So we've performed these edits. You can see that was the original. This is what we have now. So let's save. So again, we have Java's standard file chooser. We've got the same sort of filters that we had when we loaded an image. If we try and save as some ridiculous file extension, it will not work. So let's save as a JPG and see if this actually works. Uh-oh, I didn't want to do that. I just I just wrote over the image. Oh, well, that's fine. Okay, so anyway, as you can see, we've got that, but you know what? That's actually not a big deal, because what I can do here is I can save this, and all is well. So I will just rename this to new, and then we'll rename this back to what it was before, and everything is fine. So anyway, the point here is that we have edited this image. We've got, it's a 12 megapixel image of the Grand Canyon. It is significantly different from the original image, and we were able, oops, wrong one, and we were able to do this very easily, very quickly. Fairly significant edits here. So that is the saving functionality. So let's just quickly reload the app and talk about what I think is the most important feature of the app. So it's time to talk about filters. Now, our research revealed that users are often performing the same edits to the same type of images over and over again, and this can get very tedious. We wanted our app to be quick and easy to use, and our filters feature is a very important part of satisfying this design requirement. So, for instance, if somebody went on vacation to the Grand Canyon and they had 100 pictures of the Grand Canyon and they wanted to edit those pictures, they're probably going to be doing a very similar sequence of edits to every single one of these pictures. Now, what our filters feature allows a user to do is to perform a specific sequence of modifications to an image and then save that exact sequence as a filter, which they can, after saving the filter, apply to other images with a single click. So if you make a series of modifications to this image to maybe produce something like this image, you could then apply that exact same sequence of modifications to this image of the Grand Canyon or this image of the Grand Canyon. And you can do that with one click. So this means that a user only needs to perform a particular sequence of adjustments a single time, save the sequence as a filter, and they can then edit however many pictures they want using that exact sequence with only one action. Now, our app comes packaged with some basic filters, so let's introduce this feature by showing some of them off. So, as you can see, the first thing you might notice here is that this is scrollable in the typical way that a mobile device scrolls. Now, we would like to have had a small scroll bar here, but due to time constraints, we weren't able to implement anything that looked decent, as changing the appearance of scroll bars in Swing is it's quite tricky. It's not at all trivial to do, especially if you're not intimately familiar with how Java's graphics engine works. But anyway, if we click, for example, scenery, we can see what this filter does. If we click foliage, again, it's a slightly different one. Outside, cool, you can see this is a cooler look. Now, I mean, these aren't meant to be amazing filters or anything. These are just for demonstration purposes. Food. So, if we loaded up a picture of, let's see here, avocado toast, and we click food, as you can see, it kind of looks okay. We can apply that, and we can save it once these filters are applied. So it's applying maybe like 10 or 15 adjustments, so it takes a second because this is a very large image. So let's save this as avocado toast new, and we can just take a look at what the filter did. So yeah, it's a pretty significant difference. And again, we can undo, we can redo, undo, redo, undo, redo. So that's all well and good, but let's talk about actually saving filters. So we load up this image of the Grand Canyon, and we perform a couple of adjustments here. We increase the intensity, the warmth, the contrast, apply those changes, let's increase the brightness a little bit. I don't want to go overboard with the light levels, maybe increase the shadows a bit, apply that. So maybe we can go back to colors, we'll just warm it up even more. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to go overboard here. But let's just pretend this looked really good. We'll apply that. And let's just say this looked really good. It's probably going to look really good for all other pictures of the Grand Canyon. So if I applied it to this picture, it's probably going to make that picture look as good as this picture. If I applied it to this picture, it's probably going to make this picture look as good as this picture. So to save a filter, you click the Add Filter button at the top, and you're prompted to provide a name and an icon path. Now, this is a prototype. Obviously, we're not going to have users typing in an icon path. There's going to be a file chooser where they can select an icon from their photos or whatever. And the app would obviously automatically scale that down for them, maybe apply a small border just to keep everything looking nice and neat. But for the prototype, I've got some basic like some icons for testing or demonstration purposes here. So we'll call the filter canyon, and then we'll specify the icon path. We'll click OK, and look at that. Now we've got a canyon filter. So I haven't applied anything. Let's just save this image. We'll call this new2.jpg. So we've got that. Now well, we could revert, but let's actually just reload that same image just to really show that this works. So we'll load this, and then we will apply that filter, and then we'll save this again. So new 3. Oh, whoops. So you can see that that obviously didn't work, and the reason why it didn't work is because I didn't actually apply the filter. I'm getting ahead of myself here. So let's actually apply the filter before we save it, and then it actually will work. Okay, there we go. Now, as you can see, we load this guy up, and we load this guy up. Let's just get that one up. And we're dealing with the same image here, right? Like, it's the same image. So clearly, this is the idea of the filter, is you save a filter and then you can apply it to other images. So let's try that. Let's go to Grand Canyon 002. We will apply this canyon filter. We'll apply it. And I mean, you can already see that it has clearly applied the same sequence of edits. So if this works, if this sequence works well for one picture of the Grand Canyon, it's probably going to work pretty well for all sequences, for all pictures of the Grand Canyon. So we'll save this as new 4. Now let's try it with another picture from the Grand Canyon. So this one, we're going to have to fix the orientation first, so that's no problem. We'll apply that, we'll save it. And again, I mean, this is the idea here, is you apply the filter once, you save the filter, and then you can apply it in a single click to all your other images. So that's done. Let's save this as Grand Canyon new 5. So just to see some of the images that we have edited here, compared to the originals, we've got that, edited. And again, these are 12 megapixel images. They're very large images, and we're able to make these powerful adjustments very quickly, very easily. Once we find out, once we discover a sequence of adjustments that looks good for images, like this, we can apply these same adjustments very quickly, very easily. So the last thing that I want to demonstrate here is that the ordering of these filters is not arbitrary. And when you use a filter, we actually keep track, at least in the prototype, this is how we've done it. We keep track of how many times the filter has been used, and we order this list here based on how many times the filter has been used. Now, in the prototype, you actually have to reload the app before this changes. But if I do that, and we do this, we can see that Canyon is now further up in the list. Now, if we apply this again, oh boy, come on. And then we apply it again, I think that should be enough to get it to be first when we reload. Okay, so now let's reload. Whoops, let's reload. And what we should see here is that, yes, Canyon is now the most used filter. So it's first. Now, we might not use this exact system in the final version, but our research revealed that yes, users don't want to have to scroll all the way back there to find the filters that they use most often. So we wanted to have some way of ordering these to really just make it as easy as possible for people to edit their images. So they click that, they click that, they click that, they save, and then they're done. It's all very quick. It's all very easy. And that really concludes the demo of the app. So we've gone over the loading screen, loading images, making basic adjustments like rotations, messing with the colors, the brightness levels. We would have red eye, blemish removal, things like that, adding text and drawing. These are not implemented. You'd be able to zoom as well, by pinching. You can save your filters, you can revert to the original, you can undo and redo, you can save, you can apply filters, and that's really it. So I hope you enjoyed this demonstration. Sorry it took so long, there's just a lot to cover. And yeah, so thanks for watching.